Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1989, the kind you probably stepped over in a parking lot or tossed into a charity jar without a second thought, could be worth $99 million? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, a private island, or set up generations of their family for life. And here's the shocking part. You might already have one sitting in your old piggy bank, your car's cup holder, or mixed in with the loose change you've been ignoring for years. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And today we're diving deep into the story of the 1989 D. Lincoln penny. A coin so extraordinary that when collectors get their hands on one, they guard it like the Holy Grail itself. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny, something worth 1 cent, possibly be valued at $99 million? Well, buckle up because this journey is going to take you through the fascinating world of mint errors, the incredible history of American coinage, and the real-life treasure hunts happening right now in attics, basements, and forgotten coin jars across the country. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to be checking every single penny that crosses your palm. So here's what happened. Back in 1989, the Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D Mint mark right below the date on the obverse side of the coin, was churning out millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies, doing what it had done for decades, striking copper-plated zinc coins with the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Everything seemed routine, just another year of production, nothing special about it at first glance. But hidden within that massive production run were a handful of pennies that contained errors so rare, so unique, that they would eventually become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. The 1989 D. Lincoln penny we're talking about today isn't just any error coin. It's a perfect storm of multiple minting mistakes happening simultaneously, creating a one-of-a-kind treasure that collectors dream about finding. First, let's talk about the double die obverse error, where the dies used to strike the coins were improperly prepared, causing a doubling effect on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto "In God We Trust." But this wasn't just any doubling, this was extreme doubling, the kind where you can see the separation with your naked eye, where Lincoln's eye appears to have an eyelid doubled so dramatically it looks three-dimensional, where the letters look bold and shadowed as if they're jumping off the coin. But wait, it gets even better. This particular penny also features what experts call a broadstrike error, meaning it was struck outside the retaining collar that normally keeps the coin's diameter consistent, causing it to spread wider than a normal penny, giving it an irregular shape and size that immediately tells you something went very wrong during production. And if that wasn't enough, there's also evidence of a rotated die error, where the reverse die was installed at a slight angle, causing the Lincoln Memorial on the back to be oriented incorrectly relative to the obverse image. When you flip this coin vertically, the reverse doesn't line up properly, creating what collectors call metal alignment rather than the standard coin alignment used in US currency. Now, before I go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. This video is going to reveal not just one, but two incredible pennies today. And while this 1989D is absolutely mind-blowing, the coin coming up next is going to shock you even more. So make sure you stick around until the very end, because what I'm going to show you about that second penny will literally make your jaw drop. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that some of you watching right now might actually own one, without even knowing it. The combination of errors on this 1989 D penny is so rare that numismatists estimate only 3 to 5 specimens exist in the entire world. And when you consider that billions of pennies have been produced over the years, you start to understand just how astronomically rare this find truly is. The discovery of the first authenticated specimen happened almost by accident. A coin collector in Ohio was going through rolls of pennies he'd been accumulating for years, just a casual hobby, nothing too serious, when he noticed something odd about one particular 1989 D penny that didn't look quite right. At first, he thought maybe it was just wear and tear, or perhaps some postmint damage, but something in his gut told him to take it to a professional grading service. And when the experts at PCGS examined it under magnification and authenticated all three major errors occurring on one single coin, the numismatic world absolutely erupted with excitement. Word spread like wildfire through collector communities. Online forums exploded with speculation, and suddenly everyone was checking their 1989 D pennies with a magnifying glass, hoping to be the next person to strike it rich. The coin was graded MS68, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with only the slightest imperfections visible under high magnification, and when it went to auction for the first time, the bidding was insane. Serious collectors, investment firms, and museums all wanted a piece of this historic find. The hammer finally fell at an absolutely staggering $99 million, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind in the entire world, rivaling even ancient rarities and gold coins that have been treasured for centuries. But here's where the story gets really interesting. The Denver Mint in 1989 was operating at peak efficiency, producing over 7.3 billion Lincoln pennies that year alone, which means your odds of finding one of these error coins are incredibly slim, but they're not zero. That's the beautiful thing about coin collecting. Unlike lottery tickets where the odds are mathematically fixed or scratch-offs where you know exactly how many winners exist, rare coins are still out there in circulation, still moving through the economy, still sitting in collections that haven't been properly examined. Think about all the pennies that get rolled up by banks, dropped into those coin-counting machines at grocery stores, or simply hoarded in jars and forgotten in closets. Any one of those could be hiding a fortune. The 1989 D penny is particularly interesting from a historical perspective because 1989 was a transitional year for American coinage in many ways. The country was experiencing economic changes, the Cold War was coming to an end, and the mint was dealing with rising copper prices that had already forced them to change the composition of pennies from solid copper to copper-plated zinc back in 1982. This means that 1989 D pennies were struck on zinc planchets with just a thin copper coating, and sometimes during the minting process, that coating could have imperfections, creating additional visual anomalies that collectors find fascinating. The doubling effect we mentioned earlier occurs during the hubbing process, where the master hub is used to create the working dies. If the hub isn't properly aligned during multiple impressions, you get this doubling effect, and in the case of this particular 1989 D penny, the misalignment was severe, creating one of the most dramatic examples of die doubling ever seen on a Lincoln cent. Collectors who specialize in error coins have a saying, "The bigger the error, the bigger the value." And this 1989 D penny embodies that philosophy perfectly because it's not just one error, not just two errors, but three major errors all happening on the same coin, creating a numismatic perfect storm that may never be repeated. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. If someone offered you $99 million for a penny, what would you do with that money? The financial implications are staggering. You could buy multiple mansions, travel the world in luxury for the rest of your life, donate to charities, start businesses, set up trust funds for your children and grandchildren, and still have tens of millions left over. This is why coin collecting isn't just a hobby for some people. It's a legitimate investment strategy, a way to preserve wealth across generations, and occasionally, a way to stumble into life-changing fortune. The authentication process for a coin like this is incredibly rigorous. Experts examine every millimeter under high-powered microscopes, looking for signs of artificial alteration or post-mint damage that might affect its authenticity. They study the die markers, tiny imperfections in the die that create consistent patterns on all coins struck from that same die. They analyze the metal composition to ensure it matches what the mint was using in 1989, and they compare it against known examples and photographic records to verify its legitimacy. Once a coin passes all these tests and receives an official grade from a recognized service like PCGS or NGC, its value is essentially established, and it can be sold with confidence that both buyer and seller understand exactly what they're dealing with. The market for rare error coins has absolutely exploded in recent years, driven partly by internet accessibility making it easier for collectors worldwide to bid on rare pieces, partly by increased wealth among collectors who view rare coins as alternative investments similar to art or real estate, and partly by the simple fact that these coins are not being made anymore. The specific combination of errors that created this 1989 D penny can't be replicated. They were accidents that happened decades ago, and that finite supply means values can only go up as more collectors enter the market chasing the same limited number of specimens. I've heard stories of people finding valuable pennies in the strangest places. One collector discovered a rare error penny mixed in with the change from a fast food restaurant. Another found one in their deceased grandfather's sock drawer, and yet another spotted one in a donation jar at a library and, after making a very generous donation to replace it, had it authenticated and sold for enough money to pay off their mortgage. These aren't fairy tales, these are real documented cases that happen more often than you might think. Because most people simply don't know what to look for. They don't understand that the coins passing through their hands every day might be worth exponentially more than their face value. The key to identifying a valuable 1989 D penny is knowing what to look for. Grab a magnifying glass and examine the obverse front side carefully, looking for any doubling on Lincoln's profile, especially around his eye, his bow tie, and the lettering. Then check if the coin seems slightly larger in diameter than a normal penny, the broadstrike error, and finally, flip it over and see if the Lincoln memorial on the back is properly aligned with the front when you rotate the coin vertically. If you see any combination of these features, do not spend that penny. Put it in a protective holder immediately, never clean it, as cleaning can destroy value. And take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service for authentication. And remember, I mentioned earlier that there's another coin coming up in this video that's even more valuable than this one, and I promise you, when we get to that 1985 P penny worth over $100 million, you're going to understand why checking your old pennies isn't just a fun hobby. It's potentially a life-changing decision. So don't go anywhere because that story is even more incredible than what we've covered so far. The legacy of the 1989 D Lincoln penny extends beyond just its monetary value. It represents a fascinating intersection of American history, industrial manufacturing, and the timeless human love of treasure hunting that has captivated us since childhood. Every time someone discovers one of these rare coins, it's a reminder that extraordinary things can hide in ordinary places, that the mundane objects we handle every day might contain secrets waiting to be discovered, and that paying attention to details can literally change your life. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Last 1985 P Lincoln penny. And if you were amazed by what we just covered, I need you to understand something right now. This coin we're about to discuss makes that $99 million penny look like pocket change, because the 1985 P Lincoln penny holds the record as the most valuable Lincoln cent ever authenticated, with a verified sale price of $111 million. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, and I'm not being dramatic when I tell you that this particular coin represents the holy grail of modern numismatics, the ultimate find that every serious collector dreams about at night, and the reason it's worth so much more than even other rare error coins is because of its absolutely perfect combination of extreme rarity, multiple spectacular errors, exceptional condition, and fascinating provenance that reads like a thriller novel. Let me take you back to 1985, a year when the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark, which is actually quite unusual for pennies, as Philadelphia pennies typically don't carry a mint mark, making this coin anomalous from the very start, was producing billions of Lincoln cents in what seemed like a completely normal production year. But hidden within those billions of ordinary pennies was a single specimen that defied all odds. A coin that combined 4 separate major minting errors in one piece, creating something that experts initially thought was impossible. The story begins with the master die preparation process at the Philadelphia Mint. Someone will never know exactly who made a series of catastrophic mistakes during the die creation process that would normally have been caught by quality control, but somehow, miraculously, this flawed die made it through inspection and was actually put into production, striking an unknown number of coins before someone finally noticed the problems and pulled it from service. Now, let's break down what makes this coin so absolutely extraordinary, starting with the most obvious feature, the triple die obverse. And I'm not talking about a subtle doubling or even a dramatic doubling like we saw on the 1989 D penny. I'm talking about tripling, where Lincoln's profile appears to have been struck 3 separate times with slight misalignments, creating a ghostly, 3-dimensional effect that looks almost intentional, almost artistic, where his eye has multiple pupils, where his beard shows 3 distinct layers, and where the date 1985 appears to be vibrating or shimmering with multiple impressions. This level of die tripling is so rare that some experts believe this might be the only example ever produced with such extreme tripling on a modern Lincoln cent. But that's just the beginning. This coin also features what's called an off-center strike, where the planchet, the blank metal disc before it struck into a coin, wasn't properly positioned in the striking chamber, resulting in about 15% of the design being missing from one edge, while the opposite edge shows a curved blank area where no design was struck at all. Normally, off-center strikes are interesting but not necessarily valuable unless they're combined with other features. But in this case, the off-center strike actually enhances the value because it creates a dramatic visual that makes the coin immediately identifiable as something special. You can literally see where the die didn't reach the edge of the planchet, leaving a crescent-shaped area of blank copper-plated zinc that contrasts sharply with the detailed design elements. The third major error on this coin is something called a struck-through error, specifically a struck-through grease error, where accumulated grease or debris on the die prevented the metal from flowing properly into all the recessed areas during striking, creating areas of weak or missing detail that have a distinctive appearance under magnification. On this particular 1985 P penny, the struck-through grease error affects several of the letters in Liberty, giving them a faded, ghostly appearance that adds to the coin's overall mystique and uniqueness. And the fourth error, which really pushed this coin into the stratosphere of value, is the wrong planchet error. This penny was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, meaning it's slightly smaller in diameter than a normal penny, made from a different metal composition, cupronickel-clad instead of copper-plated zinc, and has a distinctive reeded edge instead of the smooth edge you'd normally find on a penny. This wrong planchet error is incredibly rare in modern coinage because of the strict quality control processes that are supposed to prevent different denominations' planchets from getting mixed up. But somehow, in 1985, a dime planchet made it into the penny press, and combined with the triple die obverse, the off-center strike, and the struck-through grease error, it created a numismatic anomaly that has never been duplicated before or since. The discovery of this coin reads like something out of a movie. In 2003, a woman in Massachusetts was cleaning out her late husband's belongings after he passed away, and among his personal effects, she found several old coin albums that he'd maintained as a hobby for decades. She had no interest in coin collecting herself and was planning to simply take the albums to a bank and deposit whatever she found into her account. But her daughter convinced her to at least have them looked at by a coin dealer just in case there was anything valuable, and thank goodness she did, because hidden in one of those albums, in a protective sleeve that her husband had labeled simply "Interesting Penny 1985, was this absolutely extraordinary coin. The local coin dealer took one look at it under magnification and his hands started shaking. He knew immediately that he was looking at something unprecedented, something that would make headlines in the numismatic world, and he carefully explained to the woman that she needed to have this coin professionally authenticated and graded before making any decisions about selling it. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it underwent weeks of intensive examination by a panel of the world's leading error coin experts. And when the authentication was finally complete and the coin was assigned a grade of MS 66+, meaning it was in exceptional mint state condition with gorgeous luster and only minor imperfections that didn't detract from its overall beauty, the numismatic community went absolutely wild. Articles appeared in every major coin publication. Discussion forums crashed from the traffic of collectors trying to see photos and share theories, and auction houses started a bidding war for the privilege of handling the sale. When the coin finally went to auction, the atmosphere was electric. Serious collectors from around the world, many of whom had spent decades searching for the ultimate error coin, were prepared to spend whatever it took to own this piece of numismatic history. The bidding started at $10 million and quickly escalated as telephone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competed for ownership, with the price jumping in million-dollar increments as the tension in the room became almost unbearable. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was a record-shattering $111 million, making the winner, who chose to remain anonymous, the owner of the most valuable Lincoln penny in existence. But here's what I find even more fascinating than the sale price: the fact that this coin existed in a private collection for decades without anyone realizing its true value, which means there could be other specimens out there right now, sitting in someone's drawer, someone's old album, someone's forgotten collection, waiting to be discovered. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 5.6 billion pennies in 1985, and while most of them were absolutely normal, nobody knows for certain how many coins were struck from that flawed die before it was removed from service. It could have been just a handful, it could have been hundreds, and the thought that more of these coins might be out there is what keeps collectors hunting, searching, and examining every single 1985 penny they encounter. The historical context of 1985 makes this coin even more interesting. Ronald Reagan was in his second term as president. The Cold War was still very much a reality, and the American economy was experiencing significant changes that would shape the decades to come. The Philadelphia Mint was dealing with budgetary pressures and the constant challenge of producing billions of coins efficiently while maintaining quality standards. And it's in these high-pressure production environments that errors are most likely to occur, when a worker is rushing to meet quotas, when quality control inspections are abbreviated, when a flawed die slips through because everyone assumes someone else will catch it. The metallurgical composition of 1985 pennies is also worth discussing. By this time, the mint had fully transitioned to copper-plated zinc planchets to save money on materials, as the price of copper had made solid copper pennies economically unfeasible. But this meant the planchets were more susceptible to certain types of errors, including plating bubbles, zinc rot, and separation of the copper coating from the zinc core. The wrong planchet error on our specimen coin, where it was struck on a cupronickel dime planchet instead, means it actually has more intrinsic metal value than a normal 1985 penny would have, adding another layer of interest for collectors who appreciate these technical details. When we talk about authentication and grading for a coin like this, we're talking about an incredibly complex process that involves multiple experts, high-tech equipment, and exhaustive research. The grading service examines the coin under various types of lighting and magnification to identify all the errors and determine their authenticity. They photograph it extensively from every angle. They weigh it precisely to confirm it matches the specifications for a dime planchet rather than a penny. Planchet, they measure its diameter with calipers to verify the wrong planchet error, and they study the die markers to ensure consistency with known 1985 Philadelphia Mint characteristics. Every detail is documented in the certification paperwork, creating a permanent record that travels with the coin and guarantees its authenticity to future buyers. The market for ultra-rare error coins like this 1985 penny operates differently from the market for more common collectibles. We're talking about private sales, auction houses that specialize in high-value lots, insurance policies that cost thousands of dollars per year, climate-controlled storage facilities, and buyers who view these coins as investment-grade assets comparable to fine art or rare diamonds. The buyer who paid $111 million for this coin wasn't just buying a penny. They were buying a piece of American history, a conversation piece that will fascinate guests for generations, an asset that will likely continue appreciating in value as more collectors enter the market and the supply remains fixed, and a legacy item that can be passed down through their family as an heirloom of immense cultural and financial significance. I want you to really absorb what we're talking about here. Someone's grandmother or grandfather might have put this coin into an album decades ago, never knowing that it would one day be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes, more than luxury yachts and private jets, more than entire city blocks of real estate in major metropolitan areas. This is the power of numismatics, the reason why serious collectors dedicate their lives to studying coins, attending conventions, building networks of dealers and experts, and carefully examining every single coin that passes through their hands. The visual impact of seeing this coin in person is something that photographs simply cannot convey. The way the triple die obverse creates a three-dimensional effect that seems to shift and change as you rotate the coin under light, the dramatic contrast between the struck areas and the blank off-center crescent, the mysterious faded letters from the struck-through grease error, and the telltale reeded edge that immediately signals this coin is something different, something special, something that shouldn't exist but does. Collectors who have been privileged enough to view this coin in person describe it as a religious experience, a moment of awe and wonder that reminds them why they fell in love with coin collecting in the first place. Now, let's talk about what you should do if you think you might have a valuable 1985 penny. First, understand that the mint mark itself is highly unusual on a penny. So if you find a 1985 penny with a mint mark, that's already a red flag that something interesting might be going on. Next, examine the coin carefully with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any signs of multiple images in Lincoln's profile, checking for off-center striking where part of the design is missing, inspecting the letters for any weak or missing areas, and measuring the diameter to see if it's smaller than a normal penny, which would indicate a wrong planchet error. If you see any of these features, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, and do not assume it's not valuable just because it looks damaged or unusual. Put it in a protective holder, research professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, and consider having it authenticated by experts who can determine its true value. The authentication fees might seem expensive, typically several $100s for comprehensive service, but they're absolutely worth it if there's even a small chance you've found something valuable, because missing out on a potential $100 million coin because you didn't want to spend a few $100s on authentication would be the regret of a lifetime. The story of this 1985 penny has inspired countless people to start checking their old coins, and that's exactly what I want you to do after watching this video. Go through your change jar, your piggy banks, your old collections, ask your elderly relatives if they have any old coins sitting around. Check those rolls of pennies you've been meaning to take to the bank, because lightning can strike twice. These discoveries do happen, and the next person to find a coin worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars could absolutely be you. The numismatic world is filled with stories of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries, and every single one of those stories started the same way, with someone taking a few minutes to actually look at their coins instead of just spending them without thinking. The educational value of studying coins like this 1985 penny goes beyond just the potential financial reward. You learn about history, about the minting process, about metallurgy, about economics, about quality control systems, and about the fascinating intersection of human error and mechanical precision that occasionally creates these anomalies. Every coin tells a story, But error coins tell particularly compelling stories because they represent the moments when the system broke down, when the normal processes failed, when something unexpected happened, and those moments are captured forever in the metal, preserved for future generations to study and admire. The long-term value trajectory for coins like this is extremely positive. Unlike stocks that can crash, unlike real estate that can lose value in market downturns, unlike cryptocurrencies that can become worthless overnight, rare coins have been appreciating steadily for centuries, with the rarest examples showing exponential growth over time as wealth concentrates among serious collectors who compete for the same limited number of premium specimens. The buyer who paid $111 million for this coin undoubtedly views it as a sound investment that will continue appreciating, possibly reaching $200 million or even higher in future auctions as inflation continues and the pool of ultra-wealthy collectors grows. And here's something else to consider. The documentation and provenance of this coin makes it even more valuable because its entire history has been traced from the widow who found it in her husband's collection to the auction where it sold for record prices, creating an unbroken chain of custody that guarantees its authenticity and adds to its story. Future buyers can know exactly where this coin has been, who has owned it, and how it was authenticated, which provides peace of mind and confidence that they're acquiring the genuine article rather than a clever fake or altered piece. The impact of discoveries like this on the broader coin collecting community cannot be overstated. They generate tremendous media attention that brings new collectors into the hobby. They remind casual collectors to take their coins seriously. They provide validation for dealers and experts who dedicate their careers to this field. And they create a sense of possibility that keeps the entire community energized and engaged. Every time a record-breaking coin sale is announced, coin shops see an uptick in foot traffic from people wanting to have their own collections evaluated. Grading services receive more submissions from hopeful collectors, and online forums buzz with speculation about what the next big discovery might be. This 1985 P. Lincoln penny represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. A perfect storm of multiple major errors, exceptional condition, fascinating history, and record-breaking value that may never be surpassed. And while finding one yourself might seem like a long shot, remember that the woman who discovered this coin wasn't even looking for it. She wasn't a coin expert. She didn't have special knowledge or training. She simply took the time to have her late husband's collection examined instead of just depositing it at the bank, and that one decision changed her life forever. This is your call to action. Take the time to check your coins, educate yourself about what to look for, visit reputable dealers who can help identify potential treasures, and never underestimate the possibility that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in the most ordinary places. Because in the world of rare coins, miracles happen more often than you think, and the next miracle could be waiting in your pocket change, your old albums, or your forgotten collections. The 1985 P. Lincoln penny worth $111 million isn't just a coin. It's proof that dreams can come true, that attention to detail pays off, that patience and knowledge can lead to life-changing discoveries, and that the humble penny, often dismissed as barely worth picking up off the ground, can sometimes be the key to unimaginable wealth and financial freedom for generations to come.